So it
Yeah.
is good Abhishek. Thanks for being here, and I hope that our guys will motivate and introduce to the our colleagues and children in our NGC on this how to play with data and how to extract stories out of it. Guys,
Sure.
one of the very important things that what Vipul and Abhishek have been said. Data science is not just about computers. It's not about statistics. It's not about R program or Python program or MATLAB. It's about the most critical thing that you need to be familiar. While each of those elements are important and you can become an expert in each of them, but even if you are not a data science person, even if you are not a person, you should develop an ability to understand and appreciate, how we can bring out stories out of data. Because as the days going forward, while we have the experts who are doing much deeper analysis and very sophisticated tools, there will be more and more tools which are made available to common people like us who are not just specialized in this area to play with numbers up to some extent. If you look at even today, if you look at our Excel, it's a very powerful tool for significant amount of data analysis. Okay. The point that is there, we should develop an ability to understand and appreciate how to play with data to get a better, deeper insight. And that is, I think, something that Abhishek and Vipul is trying to, familiarize with us. And then this is the discipline you need to learn. Some of you may decide to have some career related to data science or, programming for that, or doing statistical analysis or, business analysis on that. Some of you may not do it. They may take up different career. But independent of which career that you take, it is still important to develop, an appreciation of, trying to bring out meaning from compiled data. One, and many of you, since this focus is a lot, the focus is a lot on Abhishek and Vipul exposing you a little deeper for those students who would like to take the next step and develop a deeper understanding and probably consider a career in areas related to this, and for our teachers, and because they are the one who's going to continuously be there for our students who are coming every year and develop interest and curiosity in these kind of modern tools coming, so that as a campus we are providing whatever that is best possible and whatever that is most relevant in our current society, and develop a curiosity and interest among our students to go in that direction. So I hope you'll definitely enjoy. Abhishek, you could start with from where you left off yesterday, and then we can take forward.
Sure. Sure.
Abhishek, good morning. This is Matthew. Three things. Yesterday, what you wanted us to send, we have sent the slides to the girls and the faculty. So I request them, if you have any questions, please put in the chat box.
Yeah, so we just talked about how the world is moving from creating and accessing data, which is more on individual organizations working, to the last part, which is more on using the data. And there are a lot of collaborative approach between a lot of organizations comes into play. Terminologies like big data, AI, robotics, blockchain evolved. This is mainly from the perspective of utilizing the data in the decision making of the client. That's the focus now. That's what we discussed. Can you go to the next slide, please? We also talked about a lot of approaches, the way Kosi sir suggested. Can you just hit the, yeah, perfect. So the way we suggested that data science is not about only few of the tools, few of the techniques. It is also about building a story and then knowing that sector, helping the client create those stories is also an approach that is highly regarded. So We might have an approach in terms of technology, whereon we can learn a few tools, which is one. We can have an approach whereon we can learn few techniques, that's the two. The third, which is most suggested, is an amalgamation of one and two, whereon even if you are not that skilled in each of that, but the ability to create some sort of a story out of a data around exactly how the role changes, whereon people on the technology front will be working only on data to insights. On the second part, it's more on data to insights to decisions, but most importantly, it should be decisions to actions, whereon those decisions should be used by the client to take certain decisions and certain actions on the decisions. We took an example of one of the individuals in CBDT whereon he discussed to that. And we also talked about there is an evolving role where a lot of you might be working as a pre-sales, as a people who would be liaising between the between groups in terms of creating values from those actions and letting people know the benefit of the analytics. So that's also a new that would come across to. Can I go to the next slide, please? We also talked about the different skill sets that we need to have, the hard skill sets in terms of data management, data mining and statistical skills, functional knowledge, which is known as the data science, all the three. But what is inevitable is the storytelling ability and the structured problem solving attitude, which makes decision science. We also talked that these skill sets is not inherently built. There is no such program whereon a decision scientist should be created. There might be skill sets on each of those circles, but then each of us needs to take those circles in different routes to ensure that we create a career out of it. So no one is born a decision scientist. We need to evolve in doing that. That's another learning that we had discussed too. And we stopped there on, and from today, we will be taking it from this point of time. May I go to the next slide, please? Now, getting to a more deeper into each of the case studies, the way we do, let's discuss the entire journey of a data science landscape, if I call that way. Let us walk through that. Next slide, please. Yesterday, Vipul also talked about that. If we divide the entire steps or the activities in a data science landscape, this normally consists of 5 components. One is data integration. The second is data quality. The third is visualization or a dashboard. The fourth is predictive modeling and forecasting. And the fifth is optimization. Let me share a few details about each of that, and then we'll go into detailed examples of that. When we talk about data integration, say Abhishek has a PAN card and Abhishek uses the PAN card to file his returns. Now Abhishek, using his PAN card, wants to do a NEFT transfer more than 1.5 lakh. So he has another digital footprint in the banking sector. Abhishek has used his PAN card in order to obtain a property where his digital footprint is to a third party. So Abhishek, using his primary key, which is PAN card, he has done multiple transactions in multiple areas and has left his footprint in different organizations. Now, if the government wants to view the entire story of Abhishek, what he has done, what are the things he has been doing to, you need to merge all the different informations using a primary key, which is the PAN. This is nothing but the data integration, whereon the idea is linking different data sets, data elements, data informations across the board using a primary key. That's the most important part to start, whereon we are going to link different sources of information. Now, one of the major challenges that happens with data integration is you need to have a primary common key. If we don't have a primary key, we don't have a common key, we may not be able to link a lot of informations, and then maybe we have to link it in an indirect way. So that's the first part. Second is also on the data quality. So what we mean by
Abhishek, Koshi here. Probably, I don't know how much our kids are familiar on the idea of a primary key. Probably we could sort of relate and explain, what does it mean and how does it help to.
Sure, sir. That's in the next slide, sir. So,
okay.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
I will take that way. Okay, perfect. So that's one. So second is the data quality. The data quality being, we have all the informations from multiple sources, from multiple areas, but do we trust the information, right? For example, when we talk about government data, there are questions being asked in terms of whether that information is an outlier or not. There are missing informations. So taking any decisions on that becomes a challenge, right? So data integration and data quality are the two important elements. Together, we call it as a data management. So in simple way to understand, when we link different informations and create a single table whereon I can get all the information of that individual or of that entity, if I call that way, then it becomes data integration. The moment we do some activities on top of the table so that that table becomes worthy to take decisions, that is nothing but the data quality. So data integration and data quality together is data management, the terminology that we use. If we go to the next slide, maybe we can take certain examples on that, please. Next slide, please. Okay. We took some of the hypothetical examples on that. If you see this, we know under the GSTN mechanism, there is any individual who files his returns given a specific number, right, which is a combination of digits and alphabets, and this is something unique to the individual. So Abhishek, if he files his income tax in the direct taxation, he will be given a specific or I have a specific PAN number which is different from all of the individuals, right? That's nothing but a primary key. For example, in GSTIN also, every entity is given a specific number. If you could see the last column, these numbers are unique and being used to identify and see their entire storyline. So that is what I mean by a primary key, right? Now, say Abhishek Kundu. Is Abhishek Kundu a primary key? May not be, because there would be other Abhishek Kundus in the world, right? Then it may not be the unique to me. So the objective of a primary key is that there is no duplicacy and easy to recognize. That's the idea of a primary key. Now, if you could see those numbers, can you see all these phone numbers? They have the same, same phone numbers. So there are different GSTINs, all have the similar phone numbers. Can you view that, guys? Yes, no. If you can just ping me in the box.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Now, the initial data quality figured out. So the idea of a data quality was just looking into the diving of the data, and we figured it out. All these individuals having different organizations, having different companies, if I call that way, all have the same phone number. Well, we are not talking whether it's an anomaly or not, but we are trying to find out whether this is possible, whether we need to look into that or not, whether there could be cases of certain anomalies that is in the data, and we have to go back and check. If we go to the next box below, we could see all these GSTINs may have a similar address. It might be so happen that on a specific, it might point to a similar room or a similar building where there are 100 companies linked to. Is it possible? May not be. Maybe it is a case of a paper companies. We call it cell companies, wherein all these would be linked to a single point. Vipul was talking about a network diagram whereon we could find out how all these organizations are linked to maybe a single point of address leading to 100 companies. Maybe one of the cases of probable anomalies that we need to look to. So these are basic data quality activities whereon we try to find out certain anomalies, duplicacies, questions to be answered so that we can torture the data more. Can you go to the next slide, please? Now, we know the way a PAN happens, right? The fourth letter, right? If you call it the fourth letter, the way this is spelled or this is created makes a lot of sense the way we work across. For example, my fourth letter of my PAN is a P, right? Because I am a individual, right? So for example, if you have anyone who has got a fourth letter in the PAN other than P, please. Any one of us who has got a fourth letter of my PAN other than P? No, I guess, right? Unless and otherwise, we don't have a company. So the way the PAN is mapped, the style of business is something whereon the fourth letter is put into. For example, if it is a partnership, it has to be a P. It's in an HUF, it has to be an H, right? But see, the third row, there is an organization, whichever is the name, it has been classified as itself as a P, but ideally it should be as an H. So it's a Hindu undivided family. It should be classified as an H, but it has classified himself as a P. Now, whether it is a problem in the data, whether it is intentional way of doing that to get more tax benefits, is something that's debatable and that has to be asked and looked into. But these are certain questions that crops up. Can you go to the next slide, please? Now, this is one of the common mechanisms. We were doing one project with World Bank, and if you could see in the circle, Karachi is being spelled as a Karachi Pak, Karachi Pakistan, and Karachi. Can we see this?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Now, well, everything is possible is Pakistan, but still, right, we should have a standardized name. Otherwise, even if you are using in Excel, we could see that if the same area being, or the same city being looked into multiple combinations, it might so happen that you will have a duplicacy in that filter, right? We have seen that also. Same way, in a visualization, if we don't have a standardization of our data, such type of problems will happen, whereon it becomes difficult for storytelling as well as difficult for us to take any decisions. So standardization of the data becomes very important, and some sort of a visualization on the raw data gives us an understanding what are the lacunas in the data, what are the anomalies in the data, what are the things we need to standardize if we at all need to do that. Can you go to the next slide, please? Now, this is where we were doing something with the customs, whereon the idea was to see if an individual has got different combination of names, but they are trying to obtain a passport or to obtain a visa within a country. So if you see this individual has spelled his name in different combinations. Rama bin Ganji, Rama bin Devji, Rama bin, no, so on and so, all those combinations, right? The idea is, can we do some sort of a fuzzy logic matching? Can we find, because there is not a direct combinations, right? The different ways I have written a name. For example, I can write somewhere AVISEKKUNDU, right? Say my passport should have Avishek Kundu, AVISEK as the spelling. I may have written that in my electricity bill as ABHISHEK, right? I may have written a different combinations in somewhere else. Now, if I need to track down by the government, who is this individual, and I have multiple combinations of it, it cannot be a direct one-to-one match. Some sort of a fuzzy logic or a probabilistic matching needs to happen, that these are the combinations which are the highest possibility to be the single individual. So this type of fuzzy logic will give us some sort of a circle across the probable variations a single individual may have done, and may be helpful for us to zero in on a single individual, right? That's one of the objectives and one of the fuzzy logics that we do to come to a single entity where there are multiple combinations across the board. Can you go to the next slide, please? Now, this is all a basic analysis where we figured out a lot of children under the age of 5 with no guardian, but for them, they are obtaining rations, right? So whether they are doing on their own, whether some other individuals are taking it or not is also a question, right? We figured out 526 such cases, children under 5, but they are taking rations without, they don't have a guardian, right? Whether this is right or wrong is a second question, but these are the probable questions that comes out from the data. Can you go to the next slide, please? Right? 43% of the data has date of birth at 1st Jan. Is it possible? Maybe possible, but the project that we are doing with one of the governments, we figured out a third party was given the role of doing a survey. And while doing a survey, if you could see, which was digitalized, if you click on the cursor, the first thing that will come out is a 1st January, right? Then 2nd, 3rd, so on and so forth. They need to go to that date and click that. To save time, they just clicked on the 1st Jan and submitted. So 43% of the data of the survey has got a 1st January. Of course, this is too high, and we went back to the survey organization and said, boss, you need to look back and see why this 43% of the date of birth is 1st Jan for the people. Can you go to the next slide, please? Next slide, please. Yeah. Now, this is also an example where we are working. Now, this is what we were doing for one of the state governments in the country in the agriculture sector. Now, we were trying to import the data which is coming from the agriculture ministry. And if you could see the column, right? If you could see the farmer name and father name in a dialect which is not understandable. Can you see this? The 4th column, if I call it farmer ID, that is fine. After that, farmer name and father's name is some sort of a dialect in a language which is not able to be captured by the tool. And the reason was that that information was in a local language, and the tool that we are using didn't have the way to convert the local language, because it was created to convert English language. Since it was the local language, they were not able to import in the software, and we are not able to understand these two columns. Then we need to use the local scripts, the convertibility, whereon the local names were converted to the English mechanism. And once we provided that, then only we could import that. Now, a good learning for all of us when we are using a tool, because most of the tools will be created in other nations, right? Yes. So what, Nazima, your question is fuzzy logic and algorithm of yes. Fuzzy logic is a probabilistic algorithm. Let me write it down. So what it does, say for example, my name is Abhishek Kundu. The way I spell is Avisek Kundu. So what it happened, it would find out the probability of A in the name, the probability of V in the name. So my entire name and my surname will give a probability or a number. So that way, every combination, the way I have written, will give out a probability. So then they will compare all the different combinations, and based on a threshold, they'll give this combination of names which are similar in probability to give us a series of names from which we need to find out which of the combinations seems to be the best. So this is the objective of fuzzy logic, which gives a probabilistic match, unlike our PAN cards or no GSTIN, which is a direct match one-to-one. Does that answer your query, Nazima?
Sir. Yes, yes. Okay. But
Perfect.
it's an algorithm, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, yes. It's a probabilistic algorithm. It's a indirect match, not a direct match. Because we said, right, yeah, we should have a primary key for a direct match. If we don't have a primary key, we have a duplicate no primary key or different combinations, because name can be that. How do we match? Right? So there the fuzzy logic comes, which is a probabilistic match rather than a direct match.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome. Perfect. Now, if we come into this, so the way we discuss the learning that most of the tools would be created and from the background, whether it is an US made tool, or it's a maybe a European made tool, right? For example, if we talk about SAS, it's headquartered in US, and then the tool would be having the background from the US perspective. Now, they would not be envisaging that these tools will be used for a person in Andhra, whereon the dialect would be different, or the way the language would be written in a local language, or maybe the way people talks in maybe Guwahati, that dialect would be different from English, right? The tool being provided is only or can capable of understanding those dialects and languages which is standardized by that tool. But we need to implement for local governments, because India is a diversified country and so is the entire world. So as a data scientist, we should convert that into the local mechanism so that the local data and the local languages and the local scripts could be understood and could be converted back to the tool. Now, this was a good learning for us. We incorporated the local scripts, and then only we could import the data. Now, if you come to the next slide, if you could see the area shown, that is also not standardized. So we don't know whether it is in hectares, whether it is in, these are different values, right? Okay, Mikala, you have a question. If you are having a 4 GB RAM in your machine and you want to train your model on 10 GB dataset. Okay. So the major understanding is this. If I come to this point, Mikala, the idea of entire modeling or learning is by sample data. So what you can do is that if you have a 10 GB data and you want to make your model learn, why don't we divide it into small cross validation sets or small sample data, whereon for every iteration you learn with different samples and see the accuracy. So that could be one of the ways of training the data on multiple samples, one at a time in multiple iterations, rather than doing all the training set. However, if you want to train your model on the entire 10 GB data on a single go, then the idea is that you have to incorporate some cloud services, right? So Google Cloud Services is one, Azure Cloud Services is the other, whereon you need to put the data on the cloud, and the parallel data processing of the cloud will be leveraged, and your computer will be free enough to run those models, right? So to answer you, Michaela, if you have to do that, the entire 10 GB data set, and if your laptop doesn't support that, either we can do a multiple samples or put that data into a cloud services. There are free cloud services for Amazon as well as for Google as well. Does that answer your query, Michaela?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Perfect.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah. So again, the standardization is also something that is required on this. Can you go to the next slide, please? There are different data quality mechanisms. I'll not more on that. For example, yield is where the area covered is 0, area in terms of being used, and the yield is 2090. How can it be possible, right? Can you go to the next slide, please? Can you go to the next slide, please? Yeah. Can you have a hit enter button, please, after that? Yeah. So we can see duplicate data, right? Single observation will have multiple observations. We need to deduplicate that, right? Otherwise, it becomes a challenge. So deduplication is also a question whereon you have multiple rows, whether it's a software problem, whether it's a data management problem, whether it's an entry problem is different, but these are the problems that happens with the data. Next slide, please. So I'll just keep those. These are all the examples. I'm sure you can go through that. Next slide, please. Okay. Now, what is also important during our point of time, the organization or the specific client gives us the raw data, and we spend a lot of time on the two parts, which is data integration, linking them, and the data quality, doing all those activities to ensure that the data is trustable, the examples that we saw, right? So all those will ensure that my final table with all the columns and all the rows are there in a single table. So I have a single table to refer. I have all the information that I need to look into, and I have all those people, the number of observations, all in a single table. Now the next objective happens, the key performance indicators. What is a key performance indicators? We can call it as a derived variable. For example, we can have temperature, we can have pressure, but we can create something known as, for example, in productivity in agriculture, we create something as yield. Yield is nothing but the productivity by area. So we have a way to measure the performance, right? So these are nothing but key performance indicators. Now these key performance indicators or the derived variables are created on top of the raw data, right? Now how we create this? We create this working with the client and working with the subject matter experts. For example, the project we are doing for one of the state governments has been to predict the probability of yield of a farmer. So what happens currently, we know there is a lot of suicides that happen across the country because of the problem that happened in not able to estimate the probable output or the yield the farmer will have. And they were moving into loans and they were going into financial troubles, and that was all the background of it. Now, the idea of the government was, can I predict what is the probability of a farmer, or what would be the probability of a farmer to have a maximum yield, or what he should sow based on his all the characteristics in terms of farmer statistics, weather, rainfall, the type of irrigation he does, and can we give a recommendation to the farmer saying this time you need to reap this type of crop in this month, because you have a higher probability of yield based on your farm's characteristics. Can I do that? If we could do that, then that recommendation would be helping in maximizing the yield and have a benefit to the farmers. That was the background, that was the objective which we were there on. From that perspective, apart from the raw data, we also need to create key performance indicators. If you could see this, all those key performance indicators were across minimizing value loss, maximizing value creations, and you could see those percentage growth, decline in product wastage. We were also the derived formulas and the base measures. The formulas has to be written, what goes to the numerator, what goes to the denominator. So a detailed, I've just given a snapshot of a prototype, but we had a detailed formulae whereon the raw data and the derived variables have been created, right? So those would also needs to be created on top of the data. That also needs to be taken into mind before we do that. Before I move forward, there's another question. Every organization have their own data storage, and how data centers are working. Now, every organization have their own data storage may or may not be true, in the sense that when you talk about data storage, you may be talking from a physical data storage. But in today's world, the data storage becomes so high, right, or so big, then the virtual data storage, which is cloud, comes into the play. And then data centers, but then the other point of time is also the security, right? So when you are working with the government data, the everything on the cloud in terms of a shared cloud becomes a challenge, and that specific organization might want to have their own data center which is going to accumulate that and have their own private cloud apart from a shared cloud, which would hamper their cybersecurity. So every organization, especially in the government sector or in the financial sectors, or those organizations who want to be tight-lipped about the security and the privacy of the data, given the fact that there are a lot of hackers and cyber-related crimes that are going to happen across the world, there might be a preference having their own data centers, having their own private clouds, rather than going into a sharing mechanism. So that could also be a preference, and that is what they could look into. Does that answers your query, Priti Kumari, if I guess? Does this answer your query, Priti Kumari? I see this. Perfect. Great. Can I go to the next slide, please? Okay. So these were the few questions that we had, giving that agriculture example. These are the 3 questions which the state government wanted to answer. Can we find out what are the important factors or the drivers which impact the crop yield? Because if I'm a government, I need to know which are the factors I need to focus at. I might have 500 factors, right? Second, can we find out the impact from each of those variables? Can I find out, okay, these are my top 5 factors, and then can I say, if I invest 10 rupees on this factor, for example, one could be the giving them loan, right? So if I gave 10 rupees loan to a farmer, his yield is going to increase by 2 times. Can we create some sort of a quantitative understanding in terms of what could be impact of those factors? Third, can we predict based on the different factors whether the farmer is going to have a high yield, medium yield, or a low yield based on a specific type of a crop, and can we give him a recommendation for that, right? And then in terms of what type of crop could be sown in a particular season for a yield. That was the objective. So are you, any questions on this type of questions you are trying to answer for the government, please? Perfect. So let me go to the next slide. The type of data elements that we are getting were mostly weather variables, right? In terms of what was the weather, and it was across the district. Why? Because ideally, we wanted to give a recommendation to each of the farmers. But when we went to that level, we figured out the variables were not available. Yes, we have used some algorithms. We'll come to the algorithm part, Veera Lakshmi. We have just wanted to talk about the first the story and then the algorithms. So as Kosi was saying in the first also, which algorithm to run would also depend on what type of data and what type of business problem we are trying to answer to. The challenge is, and this is for all of us, we already decide which algorithm to run irrespective of the problem, that we are going to learn a neural network, and that's the challenge happens. So maybe if we could understand the problem better, then finalizing the right algorithm becomes easy. But you are right, definitely these are all algorithms. So every algorithm is nothing but a equation, which is nothing like an y equal to fx. Where x are all your factors and y is the objective. And you create some sort of a mathematical equation between the factors and the objective. Different algorithms create different functions. The function which gives you the highest accuracy is nothing but the best algorithm. As simple as that. Perfect. So these were the different data elements. One was the weather ideas. And so we thought of, initially we thought of we are going to recommend it at the farmer level. But the type of data elements we are getting was not there in the farmer level. For example, if there is a farmer called Abhishek, he has got one field, and just after his farm, there is another farmer, right? Say Kosi. Now the problem is this, between the two farms, the variables don't change, right? For example, the temperature doesn't change, the humidity doesn't change, and there is not a lot of variability between those variables, between these two individuals, right? So giving them a recommendation at the individual level becomes difficult. We then figured out, let us give a recommendation at the district level. This district needs to sow this type of crop based on this type of characteristics. That was the objective we went into. So the weather variables, if you could see on the left hand side, water level, humidity, rainfall, maximum, minimum temperature, maximum wind speed, type of crop. And then we went to the soil statistics, number of farms, alluvial soil, black soil, acidic soil or not, is it an alkaline soil or not. All these soil statistics were coming from farmer cards, which are being given by the state government. Can you go to the next slide, please? Then there were irrigation statistics. We talked about what type of irrigation it is. It is a bore well or a canal or an open well, or it's a tank or not. So those type of informations were also there in terms of irrigation statistics. We'll see also at farmer statistics, whereon we are trying to understand the what type of farmer he is, what is his economic class, whether it's a laborer, whether he has got his own owner of that farm, whether he's a tenant, whether he's a marginal farmer, so on and so forth. He's a small farmer. So that's the farmer statistics. Can we go to the next slide, please? Now, what are the fertilizers they're giving? Because there is also a criticism that the farmers may not be able to know the optimum utilization of fertilizers, and they might be over putting in that. Okay, I'll come to this answer, Preeti Kumari. So maybe I'll take these questions at the last in terms of NM1, right? Perfect. So then we had fertilizer statistics, and then So all those were also coming from the components of the fertilizers from the department. Can you go to the next slide, please? Okay. Previous one, please. Just let me put it that way. Yeah. So just to understand, all these informations were not from a single source. All these informations were in different areas, different departments, different systems, different formats, right? Some data was in SAP, some data was in SAS, some data were in R, some data was in Python datasets, some data were in SQL servers, some data were in .txt format. So they are in different systems, different formats, different aggregations, different areas, but we all integrated that and created a single table where you had all the farmer ID and all the informations and the columns that we had seen those. So that is what is nothing but the data integration. We did some data quality checks also, whereon we removed all the outliers, have done a standardization and cleaned that. That's the second stage when we talked about cleaning that. Can you go to the next slide, please? This is also an example on the utility sector. I just gave this example, right? Maybe this is for you to refer to. All the black colored variable names are something that we have got from the client. All the red colored variables are the derived variables that we created, whereon the objective was to predict the probability of a transformer to go down, or a predictive asset management is the objective. Can I predict the probability of a electric shortfall? And this is the same example, the objective of a derived variables. I just gave it for you to reference to. Maybe I'll skip this slide, same objective, and go to the next slide for the paucity of time. Next slide, please. Okay. Now, same one of the examples that we were doing for the government of Rajasthan, whereon we had multiple departments. So we started with the commercial tax department, then we went to transport, excise, mining, revenue stamps, power and electricity. And the idea was for the government, can we integrate all the information from all the revenue earning departments to understand how a citizen behaves, and can I predict the probability of a citizen to evade any tax or do any anomalies in a mechanism. Now, how those linkage helps, let me give a quick example that would help. Maybe say I have filed my taxation to the commercial tax department, and then I have said my total sales say is ₹1,000, right? When I go back to the electric department, I figured out my electric consumption is say 10,000. Now assume that ₹1 cost of electricity is used to produce 1 unit. Now, since I have already incurred a cost of 10,000 rupees in power and electricity, I should have 10,000 units manufactured, but I have sold only 1,000 units in commercial tax department in terms of my figures that I see. So other 9,000 units should be in the stock. So there is a raid in the stock to figure it out whether I have a stock of 9,000 or not. Say I see my stock has got only 5,000. That means I have sold another 4,000 units, which I have not showcased in my taxation. And that is the anomaly which I have done. So linking all the information together from multiple departments really helped in this mechanism. Can you go to the next slide, please? The way of a story. So once you do certain algorithms, you run certain algorithms, what is the objective of all those algorithms? The objective of the algorithms is you have a past data whereon there are confirmed people who have evaded tax. Let me call it once. Maybe that will come from the audit. There are confirmed people who are the zeros, who are good people. And I have all the factors, right, in terms of their returns. and other behaviors. My objective is use certain algorithms which will help me to create certain equations, and using those equations, I can rightly predict a good guy as a good guy and rightly predict a bad guy as a bad guy. If 100 times I can, if there are 100 people and I can rightly predict 90 times, then it becomes a 90% accuracy. If I predict 95 times, it becomes 95% accuracy. As simple as that. Now, once I build those algorithms, I also need to let the client understand the benefit of the algorithms in terms of financials. How much revenue you have earned, what are the incremental benefit you have done, which department is give how much monetary terms. So this slide talks about creating the value. If you could remember the last, the different approaches, right? And the last approach was liaising between the client and the data scientists and showcasing them the value. What is the benefit of those working with that team, right? This is a slide on that, depicting the benefit in a financial terms, which makes it important for the client in appreciating and understanding the type of work being done. Can you go to the next slide, please? So this is on the data integration and the data quality. Can we go to the visualization? So now I'm going to talk about the visualization part. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next one, please. If you talk about previous one, please. Yeah, if we talk about this is a dashboard that we created for one of the chief ministers of a state, whereon the idea was to give them a story to this. For example, if you could see the pie chart, I believe it is viewable, right?
Yes, it is.
Perfect. So if you see this pie chart, see, it talks about the dealers who have evaded tax and who have not evaded tax, right? If we talk about the green, say for example, on a fine day, the chief minister wanted to view who are the people who had evaded tax. So I'm talking about a past mechanism. She clicked on the green, and then the second graph opens up. So the way the visualization of today is different from the visualization of the past. All these graphs are interactive, and any change being made in one of the graphs, the same selection will be carried out to the other graphs. So this interactiveness is something. Dashboards. Okay, so let me take you through why dashboards are important and why charts are not so important, Manisha. So maybe this will help. So what she did was she clicked on the people who had evaded tax. That's the risky dealers. Clicked on that. And then the next chart opens up. What type of business they are doing. Now, those figures on the business type are only those people of the risky dealers. So the selection made on one went to the second. Now, the chief minister believed, let me see who are evaded tax and who are just a wholesaler. She clicks on wholesaler. So the selection is all those people who have evaded tax and who is a wholesaler moves to the next slide, which is different type of turnovers. She clicks on turnover more than 5 crore. So all the people who have evaded tax, who is a wholesaler, who have a turnover of more than 5 crore, goes to the next below slide, which is of the different areas of Rajasthan. And she clicks on, say, on Jaipur. And then the list is all those people who have evaded tax, who is a wholesaler, who is having turnover more than 5 crore, and who is from Jaipur. Those list of people comes across. Now, dashboards are necessary to create a story and interactiveness. If we create charts and graphs which are not interactive among ourselves, then those selections and storytelling would not be helpful. Does this answers your query, Manisha? Perfect. Now, if I take a pause now this has been the traditional definition of a dashboard, slicing and dicing of what happened in the past. So if you could see this chief minister of of a specific state was slicing and dicing on a data which has already happened, and he was doing more of a descriptive and diagnostic statistics. What has happened and what could be the trend of what has happened or why it was happening. But he was not talking about what is going to happen, right? Let me just change the context and tell you, these list of people are not the people who have evaded tax. This list of people are the people who are going to evade tax in the next quarter, how the context changes. Then the entire dashboard becomes a predictive dashboard, isn't it? Right? So can we go to the previous slide, please? Previous slide, please. Yeah, so the traditional definition of data integration, data quality, and visualization, post that predicting and forecasting for the future doesn't hold. Many a times the client says, do a data integration, do a data quality, on which do some predictions and showcase the output of the predictions on a visualization or the dashboard. So the dashboard can be a predictive, the dashboard can be a past descriptive as well. In fact, in our understanding, the client says, give me a single dashboard which will talk about what has happened, why has happened, what is going to happen tomorrow, and what I should do to control that. Everything in a single dashboard. Can I go to the next slide, please? Okay, so this is an overall architecture, how things are there, just for you to give a reference. I will not get into the details of it, how the data sources are being taken, what are the data management stuff being done, how the analytics layers comes into play, where you do some sort of a first you do all the analytics part, then the output of analytics part go to a visualization layer, which again goes to the stakeholders. So this is the modern architecture whereon predictions, post predictions, the visualization happens. Can you go to the next slide, please? Now we'll just spare 2 minutes on the predictive modeling and forecasting and optimization. I'll take a lot of time. Can you go to the next slide, please? Now there was a question of the type of algorithms, right? When we talk about predictive modeling. If we talk about the entire type of algorithms in the predictive modeling area, all the algorithms in the world can be divided into 4 types. Either they are equation-based models, which is traditional regression-based model, the tree-based models, which we call it some sort of a decision tree or neural, or maybe random forest. These are pattern-based. This is not equation-based, but on pattern-based. Third is self-learning based models, which is more on artificial neural network and self-learning based on iterations. And fourth is other techniques that comes into play. Now, what is important for our client? How do we decide which model is important for the specific problem? So the way we do is that we run all the type of models under each of the classes, right? And we call it something like the champion challenger framework. Can we go to the next slide, please? Say, for example, we want to run the equation-based models. So what happens under the equation-based model? If you could see, there are different techniques: full fit regression, forward, backward, stepwise. Let us not go in details of it, but these algorithms are all under the equation-based approach. Now, all those algorithms would run under the equation-based approach, and the best algorithm is nothing but the champion equation-based model. So this is the champion one. How do we decide the champion? The model which will have a highest accuracy. If I go to the algorithm-based models, which is the tree-based model, all these algorithms will run, which will create different y equal to fx relationships. The one with the highest accuracy becomes the champion tree model. Same way, all the different type of y equal to fx models in terms of neural network being run, and the champion neural network or the self-learning model comes into play. Same way, all the other model techniques are run, the champion other technique comes into play. So these are internal champion equations within each of the class. Once those 4 champion models are created based on each of the classes, we compare between all the 4 champions from each of the classes to get the champion of the champions. This entire framework is being created for the client, which runs on a raw data for us to find out which is the champion of the champion technique for the client data for them to take a decision. This is the implementation strategy as far as algorithm is concerned that we use for a client to take decisions. And we call it as a champion challenger framework. Okay, so one of the question, Manisha, beyond using a template, what is the most effective design philosophy to use in a dashboard building? Okay, so when you talk about a dashboard building, the most important part is what we need to understand is if I have certain data points, a tool is not like an Alexa where I say, tool, Tableau, tell me which graph is going to be created to appreciate the data. And the tool by himself or herself, whatever be the gender I call it for the tool, is not going to create that, right? So the first important part is before creating a dashboard, we need to know what type of graph or visualization is going to appreciate the data in hand. So you have been given a data, right? So what is that graph or visualization? Is it a pie chart? Is it a histogram? What is that graph that is going to help me? That is, I need to decide without being the tool. And the first learning should be, if you can Google it out also, I'll share some links which says which type of graph appreciates what type of data. Once we understand this graph is necessary, then we can execute that graph. We can execute that graph in the tool. Once we execute that graph in the tool, the third part becomes how about the explaining the outcome from the executed graph. So these are the 3 steps we need to follow. Manisha, if that's the question, step 1 is the most important, irrespective of the tool, because executing a graph is different in different tools, the way you do. But what we do becomes constant as far as the right graph is concerned in terms of creating that picture. And then explaining the way that it makes sense in line with the business problem is more of a soft skills mixed with a graph rather than a hard skill, I would call that way. So I'll take a pause here on. I'll not go in details. I've given a detailed presentation, but because we didn't had a lot of time, maybe this will give as an exposure of the way it happens and help us to at least give us a flavor of what we are expecting to. So I'll take a pause here on. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer.
Abhishek, I think since you have answered the questions while you were presenting, I think you have taken care of most of our immediate questions. Okay, and now Dr. Nasima, that is our principal of the Arts and Science College. She has put
okay. Yeah, sure. Please go ahead.
It is there in the chat box already.
Okay. Okay, so the effort is there, ma'am. If we call it that way, because when we are talking about an equation, right? So I don't have a sharing option, but let me put it that way. If I'm creating an equation, right? Y equal to fx, right? This equation will be created on the data, right? So if I have values, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, the way the equation will be created, if I have a value called 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1000, which is an outlier, the equation becomes different. And if my equation becomes different, which is a data science equation, all my estimation about the population, about the nation becomes a challenge, right? So yes, consistent data is necessary. No doubt about that. The more consistent we have, the better we have an answer to. Now the question is, will an organization to be able to make a consistent in a nation like ours? Yes, there are ways and means to make somewhat consistent, whereon we are able to make our data science algorithms better. For example, say we have a lot of data points and we understand, is there a way to understand few of my observations are outliers? Yes, there are ways. If we can understand those observations are outliers, we might remove them in my sample and create a data set which is some sort of a consistent, right? So that is there on. Now the back to the question, for example, if we talk about a nationwide, when I say data quality, the most important part is the primary key. If I have at least my primary key, which will be helping for us to link the other problems in the data, I can take care in terms of whether I want to reduce something, I want to put across something, or so on and so forth. So let me give you an example. Say I have a data set, I'm writing in the chat box because I don't have a share option. Maybe this will be helpful. Maybe I have a data set called 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have a data set called 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1000. Data set, Nadima, without doing anything, we feel that it is an outlier. Which of the data set is an outlier? Without doing anything, just from my line. Second one, right? Perfect. Now say this is a data I have got. Now I understand there is an outlier. So what I will do? Say I assume that I use a function called log function. Now if I use a log function, then what happens? Log 1, 1, log 10. Say I am using a something, or maybe let me use something, a data called 10, 100, and 1000. These are all outliers by each way, right? Now if I use a log 10 function, log 10, 10 becomes 1, log 10, 100 becomes 2, and log 10,000 becomes 3. That means the impact of an outlier becomes less when I am using something known as transformation. Right? So there are ways like transformation, there are ways to ensure that an unstandardized data being taken care of. However, the major challenge is about the primary key. If we don't have a primary key, can we create a primary key? Or if we have a duplicate primary key, can we somehow be able to give a unique, some sort of a number to each of us? If that is being taken care of, the other problems become easier. Does that answer the query, ma'am?
Yeah, Abhishek. Now, I was just putting thoughts whether the data would be consistent like a nation or like
not at all, ma'am. Not at all. So I'll give you a discussion on this. We got a data which was inconsistent, and we figured out it was absolutely cooked up. And we went to a very senior, I would say, politician or a bureaucrat, call it that way. Sir, this data is not right. And the standard answer is, who are you to decide what is right? What is given to you, even if it is not right, assume that to be right and do it. So there are other definitions as well, right? So political interferences could also come into play, right? So those things are also has to be taken care of.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Abhishek, you missed one question. NM1, I think.
Is it? Let me check.
Somebody asked, previously. Preeti Kumari. She asked.
Okay. So the question was, Asia's largest data center in India, Yotta InnoOne, is also working on virtual cloud data. Yes, it is, because the moment data becomes so big, the physical storage cost becomes very high. It's not only a question of security; it's a question of cost, right? Assume that if you want to create if you want to create databases, or if you want to create hardwares and RAMs, it becomes a challenge, isn't it? So the idea here on is always mostly into going to virtual to the extent it is possible. If cybersecurity is a challenge, then have a private virtual, right? But virtual is the way to ensure the storage of the data. Does that answer your query? I think I have answered that questions. Yeah. I don't think any other questions we have, but still if we...
there are two, three more.
Okay.
What is the best data mining tool?
Data mining tool. So the question of a... Okay. The definition of a based data mining tool depends on two things: the level of accuracy that you want and the level of spending appetite an organization has got. So let me put it this way. An organization is ready to run 4 algorithms at an accuracy of 80%. That is his objective, right? Now I have a tool which says there are 5 algorithms can run, which will give you a 90% accuracy, but the cost is 100. I have 3, so you have multiple pointers, right? Balance between that. So we have to talk to the client. So these are called consulting services, whereon we need to decide the definition of based for that organization at a spending capacity. For example, if I am ready to buy, or if I have the spending capacity for BMW is only based for me. But if I want to run that BMW, say in Bangalore, that will not work. In the same way, if I have a Maruti 800 and that I want to run on the road of Germany, then it will also not work, right? So we need to understand the type of spending capacity, the type of accuracy intended versus the data availability and the quality of the data to decide on the type of tool that we need to do. But to give you a straight answer, we have something, let me write this thing, called Gartner quadrant. Right? And then we have something called IDC YOLO pages. And there is, so these are all YOLO pages, or these are the referral points which will give every tool their positions across the variants, right? Does data science include machine learning? So before that, so Gartner's quadrants and IDC becomes the referral point for a lot of organizations to decide which tool to buy. So these are mechanisms to do that. However, other things also needs to take care of. Does data science include machine learning, sir? So data science includes creating y equal to fx. So that requires statistics, that requires machine learning, that requires AI. All these three would be required to ensure that we create your y equal to fx, and that includes data science. If you could recollect, we give 3 skill sets, right? One is data management, the second is statistical and data mining. So when you say statistical, then we are talking about equation based. When you say data mining, the other term of data mining is machine learning. So these are different terminologies. Anything else I have missed?
There is one question, Tier 4 type data center.
Data center, the way it is worked across, right? The way it is worked across is this: based on the type of infra, based in the type of capacity, based on the type of holding mechanism, they have been segregated. The way you have a tier 1 city, tier 2 city, tier 6 city, tier 4 city, those fabrications and segregations are there and also. So that is one of the mechanisms to figure it out, in terms of to the extent the scalability of a data center happens. So these are ways of categorizing different data centers, and these are the ways to understand the capacity of it. Tier 4 is one of the based in that mechanism. Any more questions, please? Data mining can be further divided into machine learning, neural network. These are different ways, right? When we talked about different algorithms. So please refer to slide number 5 and slide number 39, where we talked about different type of algorithms. These are the two slides that would answer your queries.
Sheikh, I think we can wind up because you will be having a meeting shortly. Abhishek, two things. One is, in case there are any more questions, we will compile it together and send it to you by email.
Sure.
We can, so all the people listening here, in case you have any questions, please send it to Divya in your email so that, we will send it to Abhishek. One. Second is, Abhishek, actually, the session today we had with you is, I would say it comes from a lot of experience, the kind of projects you have done. And so I was wondering, in case if you have more time and if you have a little, you can come in and do such similar sessions with this dedicated group anytime, little later. That you can mail to me. We will arrange for the sessions any time of the day, any day also. Because it's already done online. We have a bridge setup.
Sure, Matthew, sir.
I'd like to thank you on behalf of MJC once again. Koshi had another meeting, so he had to leave a little bit early. He has asked me to thank you particularly about this. And a big thank you from all the principals, all the students, and all the faculty, and all my fellow members of the management team. Thank you so much, Abhishek. Thanks for your time. We would like to see you back here sometime later.
Sure. Thank you.